Hey, legends, welcome back to the Mason Cox Show. Big show this week. We've got line ball calls all throughout the AFL, 3 different instances. We're going to talk about all of them. We've got streakers out at Adelaide Oval, and also our boy Trav Cloke gets into it. Yes, we're going to talk about all that and much more on this episode starting now. Welcome, everyone. We have a massive episode ahead of us, so we're going to get straight into it. Welcome, Brayden. Let's start this thing off.
Oh, g'day, Mace. We've got to start with some positive energy. Boy, oh boy, we're not going to harp on your game. That was Thursday. That was ages ago. Let's get into the clanger because we can bring some joy with this. Now, I want to jump into one that happened on the Friday, the Adelaide-Geelong game. And I don't know if you saw this, but there was an absolute goose that jumped the fence. He was a pitch invader, ran out with his phone as every stupid kid does nowadays.
Influencers
wanting that clout. He was on the TikTok or the Facebook or the MySpace or whatever he was on.
You can find the Mason Cox Show on. That's it.
I don't know if we have a MySpace page anymore, but I don't know.
You ever get Zanga?
We'll start with Zanga. We had Bebo. And we can... If you jump on our MySpace, we'll chuck you in our top 10 friends.
There with Tom.
Yeah, there with Tom.
Number 1.
But anyway, back to my clanger. This absolute goose that went running out. Now, normally you see the pitch invaders. They run around the fringes, around the outside. They have a bit of fun. Sometimes they're like, climate activists or someone with a message. Well, this idiot, I will call him, just ran straight in to get the hard ball. He was like right in the stoppage, just running in. And I don't know if his head was switched on because he was just... he ran into the cauldron and he ran straight into a couple of players. Now, the players were probably the only guys that he had to really worry about because the security guards were lacking. Now, a little bit of a clanger on this poor bloke that's a security guard. I don't know if he's got a bit of osteitis pubis or whatever he had coming on, but he was waddling like a duck, the poor fella. Yeah, you'd hate to be the closest one when he jumps the fence and you're like, that's my section. That's my area.
That's my area. Unless chase ass against this guy who's probably 19 years old and a hell of a lot more athletic.
Yeah, spry chicken. He's out there and poor bloke was running after him because he almost had him. I think it was Matt Crouch grabbed him and there's a bit of controversy around what the players can't be grabbing pitch invaders.
We're going to go into detail on the podcast later.
I mean, you can't. I would definitely say that I'm very much on the players' side, and I reckon it was unders what they did to this bloke. But, Matt Crouch grabbed him and waited for the security guard to come over, and he still let him go. Wouldn't want to watch that on the review, the security team review on the Monday. Jeepers. But he's like waddling after him, and he finally got him because Ben Keys grabbed him and tripped him up, and we'll talk about that later. But that's my class. I'm giving it a bit 50-50. Definitely more the goose that jumped the fence in the first place, but maybe...
the athletic ability of the security guards at Adelaide Oval.
I reckon it's a bit of yoga or something.
Yoga, a bit of stretching pregame might help him out.
Just get a bit more limber. Just like free up those hips. Do some Samba classes or something. Because it was very waddly. It was very waddly. Yeah. So
well, that's good to know. Good to know. You doubled up. You've actually got 2 people in your clanger of the week this week, so I appreciate that. My clanger is going to be quite simple. Now, over the week, there was a few things that happened before the games, right? There's a few coin tosses that happened. And old Marmalade boys over there, they got a bit of a call up for the coin toss. And old Stray he was real hyped about it. I don't know, maybe he just lost it in the lights. Sometimes you'll lose it in the lights of the sun, but it was Marvel Stadium. There was a roof on, so I don't think that excuse is probably valid. But he just tossed the coin. He just stayed staring up as if the thing had left the building. And then I told him, I said, mate, Pink is not performing there. She's not doing acrobatics. Put your head back down to the ground. The damn coin's landed, and you need to call it what it is. But then their counterpart came over, and he took it real serious the next game and made sure they made up for that, and they're not getting made fun of for it. So that's going to be my clanger of the week. Coin toss, probably the easiest part of the game. Let's try not to screw that up. Just maybe. But I will say, Clark got a good laugh out of it. So there was a bit of hilarity, and now big fans of them and what they do, providing a bit of happiness for everyone out there.
Good to see Clark just in a bit of a happier mood.
He's like our Ross Lyon of last year, I think.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Maybe they got into the same stuff. I don't know. Man.
Well, we're going to jump into that St Kilda game at the end of this episode, but we'll go straight into the Geelong game. Let's start off there.
We said last week, went out on a limb. Do you say out on a limb? And we said that Adelaide were going to win this game.
Yeah.
Now they've let us down, but gee, didn't Geelong look good? They looked, I don't know, strong out there. It's hard when, you know, Tomahawk just turns it on. He kicks his 4 goals or whatever. You know that they're up and about. Jez is roaming around like a shark, just kicking 1 or 2 from outside 50. But one thing that didn't help the situation, because Adelaide got themselves right into the game. But Darcy Fogarty, the Fog. Oh, boy. I wouldn't want to watch this one back, but he's running into an open goal square and just boots it right into the post. And it kind of snuffed out any, you know, chance of a comeback. And then as what normally happens.
It's a real Josh Bruce style. I remember him like in the goal square, just clanked it off the post and almost came back and hit him in the head.
Yeah, when they go in and they kick it at 120%.
Trying to torp it out of the stadium.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, you're in the goal square, just a little touch.
That's a shocker. I reckon when you can speak on this more than I can, obviously, but when you got a bit too much time to think, that's when it all starts to go wrong. The demons are crawling in. They're like, then the expectation is you kick it.
Yep.
Oh, God, I have to kick this. Everyone's watching me. That one where you were...
No, I don't remember it.
No, but the one that you actually did kick, I think it was against Geelong. You had the bounce running into 50 and kicked it and did the arms spread out.
The old, did I just do that? I can't believe it. Yeah. I will say this, though, whenever you're out the back right and you got the goal square, it's a great opportunity just to absolutely pelt a ball into their cheer squad.
Yeah.
Just with no ramifications whatsoever. These people have been absolutely going at you all game long, and you've just got this line up 5 meters away from their head, and you launch that shit straight into them.
I think there's a famous one of Tony Lockett really just tried to spear it through people, like explode them. But yeah, Tony, he did whatever he wanted, and you wouldn't. I don't think anyone would have the balls to say otherwise. He threw a set of crutches at Eddie Maguire. Now, not a lot of people are going to be throwing things at Eddie Maguire, so he's got a lot of balls. But what about Tom Stewart? This little, he's a
gun, is what he is.
Yeah, well, you were saying before off air that he doesn't get the plaudits that he deserves when it's. I think he's there. I
do think he gets a lot of credit, but I don't think we're really probably realizing how good of a player he is. We talk about the Tom Hawkins, talk about the Jesse Camerons from Geelong and all that, but Tom Stewart, him, Blitzavs, those guys there, they're such a diverse kind of player. They're kind of the reason, I think, that they're getting over the line in a lot of these games. And, you know, we always look to the people that kick the 5 goals and stuff, but these people are playing in the back line are really holding them down and keeping them in these games. So it's one of those things, you know, give a bit of credit to the defenders, right?
Yeah.
And he's in his 150th game. You know, it was a big occasion for him. He stood up on the stage. He had a massive amount of intercepts. What was it, 15 intercepts on the day, 11 marks? I mean, he played out of his skin, let's be honest. And I think it's great. I mean, defenders probably don't get a lot of the credit, you know, that they deserve. And Tom's one of the best in the league, been doing it for a long time. And to see him at 150 games be able to perform on the big stage, it was pretty cool to see.
I don't think anyone was playing anywhere near him. He was just running around, getting those intercept marks. Some of those ones are the real head scratches from, I guess, opposition coach, but just people sitting at home and you're like, Stephen May's been doing it forever. Put a bloke near him, he's just soaking it up. But yeah, it's good to see Tom Stewart out there just dominating. But he did 150 games. Is it okay? Do you reckon it's stock standard? Do you get chaired off after 150 games? What's the chair off protocol?
Well, I'm going to say yes, because I don't think I'm reaching 200. So I don't think that's in my future. Yeah. Hopefully I can get to 150 and get chaired off. I did 100, Steele at 350, so I think I was a little bit outshone there.
Take the back seat.
Yeah, I took the back seat. I was like, Steele, your day. But no, I think 150, every 50 games, as a player, you kind of realize how hard it is to get to the big kind of milestones of 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350 for Tomahawk this week. Yeah. So that's going to be a massive thing. I don't know who the hell's going to carry his ass off the field. That's going to be
need a big chair.
That's going to be a big chair. I don't know who's getting the call up for the two on the shoulders, but we'll have to keep an eye out for that one.
Their rucks are like running
Stanley
rucks.
and Blitzavs would be just hobbled. They might need a crutch after that. But no, I think it's there's always this controversy around, you know, what's enough credit to give to people whenever they have milestones like that. And I think obviously he would get, you know, acknowledgement before the game and throughout the week, and then probably in the pregame meeting and stuff like that, have his family and all that there. But I'm all for celebrating people who have these kind of accomplishments because you kind of realize that any, you know, game, any kind of training session, like it all can be taken away from you so quickly. So I don't understand why we don't just celebrate these things. Yeah. Maybe there's like something more we need to do for a chair off for the big 300s or the 400s or something like that. and then we still have acknowledgements at 50. I mean, it's not like we're going to chair off Nick after 50. That doesn't happen. But,
I mean, maybe with Nick, but
50 actually. But yeah, I think there's like maybe the chairs like the in between, and then you have like the absolute legends, the people like Tomahawk, and Harvey and stuff like that. Maybe there's a level we need to go with it to be able to acknowledge them.
Hook them to a harness or something, and they shoot out of the
maybe out the back of the ute, do a full lap in the ute, have the family back there, grand final style.
Because that's the only reason I would say that you don't do it. You got to reserve the chair for the ultimate accolade. Maybe I think the chair should kick in at 200 up because there's not that many milestones beyond 200. I mean, Pendle's going to 400. What do you do at 400?
I don't know. I feel like there's got to be some. Obviously, you'll have the banner probably be specific for you. But
I think 400. That's the you got to have both teams line up bare minimum for the clap off.
Oh, for sure. Maybe there's you turn the lights off or something like that and you play a video up on the screen or something along those lines of just acknowledging their career.
Yeah, and then it always sucks if they lose.
Yeah, that's always an awkward one, isn't it? Maybe it's a pregame thing. It's a little pregame thing, right?
With some fireworks. Get some pyro out there.
Yeah. Get some Taylor Swift fireworks going on.
Oh, let's jump back into this streaker chat because Ben Keys, it's been reported by Tom Brown. Now, I thought he was off the scene, but he's back.
Yeah, he's back. He's back. Couldn't hold a man down.
He's back on Twitter where he limits the amount of interactions that people can have.
Smart. Yeah, smart. I've deleted the app. So,
so I don't know whether it's true or not, but we take his word on it. He's a professional journalist. And then,
he's qualified, I think.
But Ben Keys charged or fined $10,000 for his interaction with the streaker. Now, he grabbed him and kind of did like a little judo toss trip to, stop this guy, which,
Ben Keys is always in the media for fines.
He's always in the media for
I feel bad for this guy. I'm not sure if he's actually making any money anymore. He's just getting fined every week.
Yeah, well, so the argument is don't touch the fans, even if they're out there. Fan safety, all of that stuff. You could argue in my books player safety because
I think player health and safety, whenever it's our arena, it's like someone else coming into our office. But
if the security guard's not getting there in time to intervene, you probably got a self-defense right. That would be me putting that out there. But I remember early days on this podcast, which sparked a bit of furor, was you said that you would basically kick the ass of any streaker that jumped over the fence and came up to you.
Yeah. Now, I've got to preface this. This is before I knew there was financial penalties to doing this.
Yeah, I don't see you shelling out 10 grand.
I don't think 10 grand is something I want to be doing just to be able to prove a point in the podcast. I'm happy to lay down and be able to say I was wrong just to not have to pay $10,000.
Yeah, where do you stand on all this? It'll split everyone because you got fans v players, but apparently the fan, it looks like they can get banned up to 3 years from the stadium and a $5,000 fine.
Which is wild.
So if Keezy's getting $10K, is it all relative because he's on the AFL coin and you don't want to charge the people jumping over the fence? What the players are getting paid versus, the fine difference? I think you should be
saying it's relative to what you do for a living. I think it's like one of those things where, but this man comes in and goes into the AFL world and decides to interrupt the AFL industry. He should be fined not just as much, if not more.
I like the
I look at it as I'm like, whenever you go into a game, right? I haven't really done this in a while, but how much security is there really to go into a game?
What, how many security around the outside of the game?
I mean, is there security guards that sit there and pat you down and everything else? I mean, the pat down is the loosest pat down you'll ever see.
Yeah.
It is literally not even looking at you. You touch your chest,
they have the ones.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we've all been to a footy game. We realize there's security going into the joint. Probably, it's pretty easy just to roll in. I'm sure a few people have a few flasks they've brought in, no doubt. But I just think it's one of those things where player safety and welfare. It's like if this guy's jumping around, rolling around, doing all that stuff, you have no idea kind of what condition this person is that's running into the field. So. It's a priority, health and safety for the players. I guess we have to have health and safety for the person that's running onto the field.
I reckon it's fair game.
But I think it's more on the security guards around them to say, if you see someone running out there, you need to get to them before that. But you have 5 meters from essentially the boundary to the stands.
That was the problem because he ran into the stoppage. The security guard stood on the outside because he's like, I can't really run into the stoppage because I'm also a hazard running in there. So, it was I reckon it's a gap in security. Like, there's definitely like, what do you do in that circumstance? I subscribe to the WWE model, whereas if you jump that fence and you go into that ring, fair game. You're in their arena, they can just kick the shit out of you.
It's like the cage of death or whatever they put. It's like a WWE.
The Hell in the Cell.
Hell in the Cell. That's what it is. Yes.
You jump into the Hell in the Cell. Hey, it's
you ain't
on.
coming out.
It's on. Let's jump over to the North Melbourne Freo game. North were in it, and they were in it early.
Yeah.
But then Freo have done this 2 weeks in a row where they've just piled on the goals. Now, going into the season, everyone was questioning Freo's ability to score. They were, a defensive team in that defensive mold. But they've got so many good forwards at the moment, and they just smashed on 9 goals back to back to back to back to back to back. Yep. And in the end,
look to the right, and it's like last goals, and it's like bang, 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 Freo.
Yeah, in the end, they got the job done. Luke Jackson. Now, this is a conundrum. Yeah, coaches always say, "Oh, it's a good problem to have when there's positive selection for spots. It's tight." But Luke Jackson, 2 goals, 24 disposals, 21 hitouts. Absolutely star. He was the catalyst for them getting back into it and going on their run with Brayshaw. But the problem is when Sean Darcy comes back, does he just push Jackson aside, take that lead ruck spot back, and Jackson has to find another position to fill around the ground? And we know he can go up forward. We know he can pretty much play anywhere.
Yeah.
Is that an advantage? What's the team thing to do in that situation? If the team's humming, do you stuff with something that's working well?
Well, I think we all know that there's big contracts for both of them. So you kind of look at those players that are on big contracts, and you say it's a conundrum for coaches say, "Oh, it's good to have competition." Well, I'd say it's good to have competition with them, unless those 2 people are fighting for the same spot and they're on a decent chunk of your salary cap, right? Because then you're going, okay, I'm probably getting pressure from the board to say we need to play the players that are getting paid the most. Jesus, that's a bit of a tongue twister. Say that 10 times fast. But with this situation, like Sean Darcy is one of the best ruckmen in the league. Luke Jackson gives a very different look from what Sean provides. But I think they'll end up probably bringing Sean back in, see Luke forward, test it out. And then if it doesn't work out, they might go back to this where they're winning games with Luke Jackson in the ruck. So, the thing it reminds me most of is the Brody Grundy scenario with Max Gawn last year, right? So you have Max Gawn comes back in, can't play as much forward or doesn't want to play as much forward. And Brody wants they're jostling for who's getting the more ruck time. And then Brody kind of gets dropped, and then that's kind of where the situation lands. So not to say that's what's going to happen here at Freo, but that's kind of what I'm looking at right now and saying, hopefully that's not the situation they find themselves in. And who knows what's going to happen, but I think my idea is you bring Sean back in, you put Luke back forward. Unfortunately, it's going to mean one of the big forwards is probably going to have to come out, even though they're probably playing well. But it's just the scenario that, as a coach, you probably decide.
They got Jai Amos up there. They got Big Dick Tracy, who's playing some pretty good footy. They've actually been spoilt for choice with forwards. Minus the fact that most of the times they've paid this big money for forwards and it just hasn't worked. I saw Jesse Hogan, who's absolutely killing it at the Giants, who's playing just as well at Melbourne, just had a massive dip when he went to Fremantle. They had Cam McCarthy. That didn't work out. Rory Lobb, It's but I reckon they've settled on a couple of absolute beauties. Dick Tracy's a rookie, which is in the checkers mold. Which is you just want someone to go out there and just
do the job.
Play the
role for the team.
Just go out there, do their job. But Taberner's probably that one that's probably coming out of that. He's getting a bit older now. Luke Jackson could just push forward. He's a good forward. But they're going to have to test it out and see if it works. Another one that's actually kind of going all right in its infancy is Goldstein and Draper. Draper obviously got subbed out late in the game, and they had to push Goldstein into the ruck, which did work well. I think the thing is that both of those guys can actually play forward. I think the whole thing why the Grundy Gawn thing didn't work is that forward aspect, the forward element to it. But it's always interesting. People always talk, can you play 2 big rucks in the one team? And you got yourself and DC.
I've had plenty of experience in forward, and I think that's probably what saved me. And it's one thing whenever I first came to the club, I looked at the positions that were available, right? You had Jared Witts, Brody Grundy. And that was my first year there. And I was like, well, it's going to take a few years to be able to try to even compete with them, to jump them. And then we had, I think it was Jesse White, and we had Travis Cloke, who wasn't going as well at the time. And I kind of looked at it, I was like, all right, well, if I can diversify as much as I can, try to learn 2 positions in one, it gives me double the chances of playing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, really been my savior at times, as far as, if we as a team have someone come in, you can kind of push to the other position. And if you need that position filled, you go to the other position. And that's kind of given me a bit of diversity, I guess, in my game, to the point where I can play multiple positions. And yeah, it's saved me to be able to have those years playing forward. So it is important, I think, for people like Luke, who's very similar to probably the position I play. He's a lot more mobile than I am, obviously. But the ability to play those 2 positions allows them to have more flexibility in their team whenever Sean does come back, or if they want to just play him the rock purely, they can.
Yeah, because you imagine it'll affect his numbers, Luke Jackson.
Yeah, 100% it will.
But at the same time, maybe he'll have more gas in the tank for short bursts.
Yeah.
To absolutely just rip up games in a small burst. But yeah, it was an interesting one. Another interesting one that we saw was another out of bounds line ball decision.
A few this weekend.
Yeah, this one, there was a few over the weekend that kind of looked out of bounds, but you could say, it's open to interpretation. This one, not so. So it was Fremantle back half. It was a backwards kick to James Aish, went over his head and hit the behind post on the full. Should have been out of bounds on the full. Umpires came together and had a discussion and then just called a boundary throw-in.
Yep.
Now, I don't know where this sits in the rules, but we've had so many rejigs of the umpire system. We've got an extra umpire out there, and it seems to have delayed calls, made hesitations, non-calls. Then there's the issue where a field umpire might be in better position to call something for a boundary call.
Yeah.
But that's not their job. It's the boundary umpire's call. And sometimes the boundary umpire, because they have to do from the center circle all the way around to the behind post. One kick, this is like 50, 60 meters.
Yeah.
Poor bloke's got to be humming to get into position. And we've seen it a couple of times this year already where they're out of position and they miss the call. Yeah. Now, this one, they showed the replay on the screen and it as clear as day. No like gray area or anything. No like bunt ball. It just went over Aish's head, hit the post on the full, then bounced.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, why do we have the score review system if you can't just go, give us a quick look at that? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We definitely have vision of it.
Well, yeah.
So it's like, why don't we just use that to be able to fix the issue?
And it hit the post. So it's like, although it wouldn't have been a score, it's still related to the goals as a whole. So it's just crazy where the umpire situation's at. And we're not going to, zone in on one thing, but it's more just where we're at. Like, it's like they've brought in more umpires, which has brought in more confusion, and we're still nowhere near closer to like a good goal review system. It's shocking. But this one, it's just, and that was probably the better one of the weekend. The game was still very much on the line. It was like 2 goals in it in the last quarter with about 7 minutes to go. Yeah. So it would have been a handy crack at goal for North, to say the least. But I don't know. It's
always going to be room for improvement. I think obviously we've talked about it before. There's a need for more umpires to be in the game. So they're trying to vet a few more umpires. There's a lot of them that have quite a few games that will be retiring, I think, in the next 4 to 5 years. And they're trying to really kind of, blood and get these new umpires up to the level, to be able to have that next generation come through. So if there's ability to be able to help them through visuals or camera angles or whatever it is to make the right call, then I think we're all for it, really. Like, extra 5 seconds to make sure that something's right isn't going to really kill us in the game, to be honest.
Yeah.
Extra 5 seconds for me to catch a breath, I'm pretty happy with.
Yeah, true. Now, obviously, we don't want you to get in any trouble by naming anyone or saying anything specific. But have you noticed a delay in calls? Because watching games, I feel like, and I'm not sure if it's because there is an extra umpire and you get out of zone calls and stuff like that, but it feels like there's been a lot of like late whistles and delayed whistles and like calling back of moments and like it just seems really disjointed. I know there's been a lot of delayed calls and some commentary on Fox Footy about delayed whistles, which we've talked about in the past when we're trying to stamp out, sling tackles and all of that type of dumping tackle, and delayed calls can, add to that and amplify it because they're like, oh, well, I got to take this to ground because there's no whistle coming. Have you noticed these delayed calls?
Well, I always kind of find it interesting because it's like, I don't really think it would matter if you hear 2 whistles back to back. Like if you see something that happens, whether you're the person that's in that area, like you might not be that, person that's dealing with 450, but you might have a better angle because of the way they fell or something like that. They're hiding the ball, whatever it may be. If you, make a call like that, just blow the whistle. And then if the other person adjudicates the same, then they'll blow their whistle too. And it might be like, a half-second difference. Yeah. But like to us as players, it's like once we hear a whistle, we know it's time to stop. Yeah. We know something's happened, right? Whereas I don't think there's like any, negative to having more people trying to call stuff. Yeah, it might sound more like a netball game at some point, but I just think it's like if you see it, call it. Don't like wait for someone else to call it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, they're talking to each other through the outer zone. They're like, I saw this and I saw that. So like sometimes...
Well, it's like if you see it, just call it. It shouldn't be like an issue. You just move on.
Outer zone will communicate to someone in their zone and be like, stop, that's a free kick. And you can see them being like, all right, I've blown my whistle. What's it for? And they're waiting for a decision, which way is it going and all of that. It's just, I don't know. It seems really disjointed at the moment, and at least from a viewer's standpoint. But yeah, I hope they iron out the kinks as the season goes on. Let's jump into the Hawthorn-Melbourne game. It was a very ugly game. I don't actually want to talk that much about it because it was an ugly game.
D's killed them. D's 93, Hawthorn 38.
Yeah, it was
38 for a game.
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of thinking that Hawthorn was going to keep making improvements, and it's very early in the season to be making hard calls on them, but you want to see a hell of a lot more improvement out of them than this. And it was made, I was watching First Crack last night, and they were actually saying that they're a fair bit further into the rebuild than we've been led to believe. They're kind of 3 years into this rebuild because it did start in the Clarko regime. Yeah. So, 3 years into it, you definitely want to see a team at least start to get in, start scoring at least 38 points in a game. That's pretty shocking. And they got some pretty good key forwards up there to do their thing. A lot of good small forwards. Yeah. And then it gets interesting when it's. I think Luke Bruce was subbed out for Jack Gunston. Now, obviously, they're older players. So I'm guessing they just need some leadership down there. So they take one leader out, replace him with another. Yeah. But at the same time, do you want to still be doing that? Should you be just blooding youngsters? They're still not the youngest team out there. For like a team that's only scoring 38, like you kind of want to see that progression.
Yeah, you do. But I think it's important to have those people that know exactly what is supposed to be happening and being able to put people in the right spots. You look at Luke Hodge with Brisbane back in the day, like he was essentially there as a coach/player, putting people in different positions. And like, was he the most athletic person out there being able to run? No, he was like, I don't know how old he was at the time, but like he was so important for them and their structure to make sure they're in the right places. And you look at them whenever he retired, how much better off they were for having him in the environment and being on ground and being able to show them in game to help other players understand it whenever they start playing. And I think there's definitely a value to that, obviously. Hawthorn, you look at it, 38 points, obviously not ideal, but Melbourne's one of those really good teams. Like they're a top 4 team last year. They've been top 4 for the last few years. They are definitely putting on them. I think we got people kicking 5 goals. We had Fritsch. I say his name wrong every single time.
Fritsch, which is Fritter, which is, I wanted to ask, what's your favorite fritter? So
I've only known a corn fritter. So
we've got the pineapple fritter. It's all just deep fried stuff.
So fair food.
Yeah.
Like state fair food.
Yeah, like a banana fritter.
Oh, fried banana, really good. Yeah. I will say, very good.
My favorite thing, big country boy. Me and Harrow on the decks, country boys. He's not so much. He's from Rochi CBD, but I'm from
the big smoke. The big smoke of Rochi.
I'm right out there. We go camping, and what we do, you get the banana, slice it down the middle, Cadbury chocolate in it, wrap it in tinfoil, chuck it on the fire.
It's a bit of like an Australian s'more.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then you just heat that up, let it all ooze through and melt, and then just burn the shit out of your mouth. It's great.
I love that. Well, let's get back to footy. I don't know how we got into this food thing, but yeah, Fritsch kicked 5 goals. Yeah. So Fritsch, we'll say, is his name. Yeah.
And it's cool because I do get what you mean with the leadership up there. When you do have so many absolute jet small forwards, to be learning off the likes of like Luke Bruce and Jack Gunston, you got Guinea's going to be up there. He's going to be around for a long time. So it's good to be able to learn off them while you still can. Nick Watson, the Wizard. Was up there, kicked his first goal, which is awesome to see. You like to see the kids, getting out there, getting some experience. Now, another kid, he had 29 touches, kicked the goal. Christian Petrarca. But that's not why he gained attention. Yeah. Because there was a moment where it was a long, high ball into Melbourne's defence. Yeah. And Christian Petrarca got back and spoiled. But he looked happier than when he kicked his goal. He was getting back, high 10, big smile on his face. After the game, he said that it was because his teammates give him shit because he only averages 1 defensive spoil per year. So the last 3 years, he's averaged 1 defensive spoil per year.
I wouldn't be telling the media that.
And he was just stoked that he got it in round 2.
Yeah. He's already hit the quota. He doesn't need to go back into D50 anymore. I did see the old double cobras as soon as he got the spoil. But I think like as a midfielder, I think it was such an effort. Like if you looked at the zoomed out vision of it, he was a fair way off the person in the goal square. They're up by a decent amount. Like no one's gonna really give him crap or flack if he doesn't make that effort right. Yeah. He goes on a full tilt sprint and just knocks it straight over the line. And it's like, whenever your team, you're humming and stuff like they were, you really get to enjoy and I guess celebrate those little things. Yeah. Like in a close, tight game, it's just like a quick high five, see you later, move on to the next thing. But in those games where you're really kind of ahead quite a bit, you actually get to have a bit of a laugh and enjoyment around it. And that's what I think you saw out of track in that moment. And it's a sign they're going really well. Whenever you have leaders making those decisions, no matter what the score is on the or what the number is on the scoreboard, they're still trying to do their best no matter what it is. And it's a good sign where they're out of the club.
Speaking of leaders, Stephen May and Jake Lever. Yep. Big injuries out of this game. Now, Jake Lever's a kind of a bit of a wait and see. They strapped up his knee, but he didn't come back onto the ground. And Stephen May, boy, he copped a knee kind of under the armpit by Mabiel Chol. He's a big boy. Yeah. You don't want to be copping a knee from him anywhere. But I love how the news has been painting this one. They're like, good news, Stephen May only has 2 broken ribs and damaged vertebra. So, how many vertebrae is a good amount to have damaged? I don't know. I would probably say none.
I would say none.
But that's pretty good news for him. But rough. He might miss only a week.
That baffles me. Like if you're saying damaged vertebra, like that's not something that just like heals like that, No. It takes a while for your back, which is not really replaceable, to get better. But the 2 ribs, I was thinking about whenever I had this because I had a broken rib last year, and I was like, oh man, it is the worst feeling because every breath you take, you're just in agony and pain. You feel it. And there's nothing you can do for it. You just have to let it sit there. And you put a pad or like a guard or something on, but there is literally no like rehab for it. There's no nothing. You just have to fight through the pain for like 6 weeks. So I can imagine that night after the game or that night of the game, he would have had a pretty sleepless night.
Well, he went to hospital, spent the night. Yeah. Would have been pretty rough. You never want to spend the night in the hospital. You can attest to that. I actually did allegedly break a rib playing indoor soccer. And I say allegedly because I went to the club doctor at Collingwood. Yeah. And they said, well, you've probably broken it, but you can go get a scan and then they just confirm that you've broken it and then they can't do anything. And I was like, well,
I'll save $300.
Yeah,
I'll just go on home. Anyway. I'll just tell the story as if it was.
100%. So I did break those ribs. Let's jump into the Sydney Essendon game because out of all the games, I reckon
scores.
So much to talk about out of this one. The biggest talking point, we'll jump straight into it off the top. Big 2-meter Peter just ran through Cunningham, and it's one of those ones that we'll talk about and they'll be debated all week. But it was a marking contest. Yeah. Now, 2-meter Peter didn't put his arms out. He didn't try to spoil. He just braced
himself.
He braced for contact, and unfortunately, Cunningham was the one that was on the receiving end, fully knocked out cold, and was helped from the ground.
Yeah.
Now, this one's going to be debated all week, but how do you see this, not in terms of this incident as a specific, but it's been discussed that don't be surprised if you see players kind of pulling out of contests or stopping short.
Yeah.
I keep harping back onto the conversation that we had pretty much round zero, that I feel like the players are the last layer of mitigation to risk. And I feel like that's the mindset that needs to change. It's like, I'm not going to get there. I might be line ball. I might get there at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not my ball. He's getting there first. I just have to pull up and do what I can to like hold up play and stop play, because there's just going to be more and more of these incidents. We're not really going to progress forward because people that are saying, oh, he should have put an arm out to look like he was trying to spoil and he would have got off. I don't think it's what can we do to finesse the system to try and get off, to make it look like I was trying to do something. You're not going to get there. Just pull up, hold up play.
There's this whole thing I think in AFL, and I've realized this is like there's probably like a second to a half second after a person marks that you can still make contact with them, right? And it's the make it earn it attitude.
100%.
Right? And I think that's probably one thing the AFL is looking at is going, if you do hit someone after they've taken a mark or they've gone for the contest and it is a half second or something, free kick right away, right? Where it's like kind of this weird gray area that the AFL has where you can still kind of like, act like you're still jumping into them and like make them try to, fumble the ball. And I think like situations like this will definitely make it to the point where they're going to go more extreme on the side that you need to pull out of that contest.
Yeah.
And we've always talked about concussion here. We've talked about head-high contact, and we take it very seriously in this situation. You never want to see someone. We'll probably talk about it in the game with Mason Wood with St Kilda.
Yeah.
You never want to see it. But I think the AFL will look at these situations and go, all right, one, they'll adjudicate it with their kind of grid system of high contact, intentional, all these kind of things, whatever it is, and then be able to put out the penalty. But whenever it comes to these situations, they're going to go, okay, how do we mitigate these as much as possible in the game? And that's probably going to mean those ones where you say you need to make them earn it by going in there, really kind of like bashing into their body after they've kind of already been in the contest after that half second. They're going to probably start penalizing those. And I don't know if it'll be a 50-meter free kick or whatever it may be, but it's similar to like, tackling someone and holding on to them whenever you sling them to the ground. It's similar to that after the deal's been done. Someone's already made the disposal, wherever it is, and you decide to do an extra effort to make them hurt, right? And I think that's one thing with the marking contest, and it's going to be adjudicated probably pretty heavily over the next, for the rest of the season, I think. There's been a few already contests and stuff that's happened, and, they've been sent to the tribunal, and that's just going to be the future, I think, of the game.
I did like the take, bracing for contact is essentially saying, I'm going to protect myself over your opposition. That's you saying, look, I need to protect me because I'm getting there late or whatever over my opposition. I think the thought needs to change to, I can see in front of me, he can't see behind him.
Yeah.
Players need to start looking after other players, which is going to be...
Oh, that's a question mark there.
It's going to be a mindset that a lot of people don't like. Fans aren't going to like it.
No.
You're not going to... it's just going to be one of those things where it's... Peter's leading up at that ball. Peter Wright's leading up at that ball. He knows what's in front of him. And Cunningham's just putting himself back in the position. It's going to have to get to the point where we draw a line in the sand and say, whose obligation
care is it?
Is it Cunningham's not to put himself in a vulnerable position and go back with the flight?
No. I can't,
or is it Peter Wright leading up at the ball going, I can see I'm going to steamroll him?
It's the person that sees the ball and the man at the same time.
So, it's going to be very interesting. And we're still a while away, but I feel like we're progressing at a really quick rate. Now, someone that didn't like the incident, which is understandable, Tom Papley, and he voiced his opinion of it over and over and over.
Absolutely love it.
He actually did it on 3 separate occasions. One was coming off the ground.
3 times.
One was coming off the ground at halftime doing the interview because it's been out there that Brad Scott was saying that, Essendon needs to play with this hard edge, edge. And Tom Papley was questioning whether the hard edge was more like sniping or was it, you're going for the ball.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, he would have his own opinion because his teammate has
just
been knocked out
looking after him,
in the contest. So he was questioning whether it was at the man or at the ball.
Yeah.
And he kept on going on with it. Now, is this
in the heat of the moment at halftime too? Like you'd be still filthy about it. You haven't
100%.
really taken a breath about the situation. I'll rate it. I rate the fact that he's supporting his teammates. I got no issue with it.
Yeah, he had another couple of cracks at it after the game.
Yeah.
And it definitely builds some spice for the next encounter. We've been through this. We've talked about this. Are people ready for players to start speaking their mind a bit more? Because as much as we say, he spoke his mind, absolutely love it, would love to see more of it, this whole week is going to be talking about that. And, there'll be a spotlight on it because there's not enough things like this that happen. There's only normally one player goes out there, they stick their head up, and then they get whacked, and then they go back into their shell, and they don't want to do it again. Hopefully Tom Papley's not like that. We know that he's an outspoken bloke. But do you reckon people are ready for we say one thing, and I think we mean another because we say we want to see players talk shit. Then as soon as one player says anything remotely charismatic that can promote the game, we absolutely tee off on them. And I'm not talking minor stuff. It's like death threats. It's like violence. It's like they'll reach out to the families. We'll see racism. We'll see like all kinds of vile trash.
Yeah.
But every other week we're asking to see more of it.
Yeah, I think the media wants to see more of it because it creates a better atmosphere for the game. Do I think people actually agree with it or are ready for it? I don't think so.
No.
I look at, obviously, like being an American, you'll look at that side of things and what kind of personality people can actually show out there. Totally different. Totally different. The mentality, you talk about tall poppy syndrome in Australia. The fact that you have a terminology for it is probably a sign that it's a problem, right?
Yeah.
The fact that you can sit there and be like, no, we're actually going to create a word just for this situation because we're so shit at it.
Yeah.
That's probably a sign within itself. But, it's one of those things. It's like, it's going to take people like Paps and myself and others that are in the AFL to just keep pushing that, that initiative to say, you know what, we do have a voice and I'm here to protect my teammates. And whether you agree with me or not, like that's your opinion and I can respect that, but I don't have to agree with it. And it's one of those things like, if it's your team, right? Like if you're a supporter, you're like, oh, it's great for Paps. Whoa.
100%.
If you're an Essendon supporter, you're going, fuck Papley, he's a dickhead. And it's like, well, no, he's just trying to protect his team as if you would protect a mate of yourself.
People want to hear outspoken players unless it's about their team.
Yeah.
And then it's a free-for-all. It's on for young and old.
Well, the media want it because it's more headlines for them.
Yeah, 100%.
More papers to sell, more everything else.
But we
look at whenever the whole GWS thing happened, right?
Yeah.
Media was filthy that I wanted to talk about on this podcast because they didn't get clicks for it.
Yeah, 100%.
They were pissed.
And imagine if you didn't have a podcast.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have had a voice.
You would no one would know the truth.
Anyway,
it's pretty wild, eh?
There's a lot to speak about on that. But another
back to the footy. Go ahead.
Another out-of-bounds situation, and this one I believe was probably the worst of the weekend. You might argue something different, but Kyle Langford marked the ball. It would have to be 1.5 meters over the line.
On the AstroTurf, essentially.
He was very close to running onto the AstroTurf. And although we saw in your game Jeremy Howe get called for play on why he was standing out of bounds and it got called for a throw-in, Kyle Langford marked it out of bounds and continued to run down the wing out of bounds before coming back into play. He kicked the ball inside Essendon's forward 50 and it resulted in a direct goal.
Yeah.
Now, with the amount of umpires that are standing out there, I don't know how all the players know what happened, all the fans know what happened, every commentator on the broadcast, every bloke sitting at home, every guy sinking pots at the pub, everyone.
The guy on his 12th beer in the pub knows what's going on.
Everyone knew what was happening except for the umpires in that situation. And it's just as a professional organisation and league, we can't have that happen. That can't
That surely
happen.
makes the review for umpires.
Yeah, and I get that you can't tee off on people, you can't tee off on umpires, especially because we want more of them in the game. But it's just
whenever Channel 7 shows every different angle of how it's wrong,
100%.
It doesn't help the situation.
No, it definitely doesn't help the situation. And it's like if it's a procedural thing, if it's maybe the field umpire saw it, but the boundary umpire wasn't in position, we need a system to be able to have a field umpire overrule or give their opinion based on that because it was shocking.
I don't know.
But
there's going to be mistakes made, Brayden. That's just part of the football game.
But there was multiple out of bounds this weekend, which we will get to the third one later on.
There's one more.
That's 2 or 3. And Travis Cloke. This was a great one. If
fan of the pod.
This was like
big fan of Trav Cloke.
This takes me back to just like, you know, a real common sense one, almost 90s-esque when some of that common sense still, you know, existed. But there was a bit of a fracas, a bit of a melee. Yep. Now, Travis Cloke's the runner for Essendon.
Yep.
He was out there. He ran around and grabbed pretty much every Essendon player, didn't touch any of the opposition, grabbed them and pulled them out of the melee and said, get back to your position.
Yep.
They all respected him. They all trust him. And
I would too.
And
did you see how big Travis Cloke is?
Did not question him.
He can bench 200 kilos, right?
He's got the big handlebar mustache, the big walrus mustache. You're like, who's pulling at me? Oh, yeah, it's wherever you want me.
You're like, oh, I'm so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry. I apologize. What do you want? Do you want me to cook you dinner tomorrow?
But, you know, now they're going around, they're like putting out warnings to clubs saying runners, you know, redefining their roles, stay out of it, which I get if it like sets a bad precedent or whatever going forward. But it was good to see Trav go in there and go, hey, boys, stop stuffing around.
Trying to help umpires probably. Trying to help everyone else.
He fixed it like that and everyone moved on. So it was glad. I was happy to see it. Always happy to see Travis Cloke, to be honest. But
well, it's like NBA, right? Whenever there's a scuffle in the NBA, the coaches come out there. All the assistant coaches come out and they start pulling people off each other and stuff like that. So obviously footy's a bit different. But I understand that side of things. But I think Travis Cloke had the right intentions just to try to, you know, just settle the situation that was out there.
Imagine if you were in a melee and you just saw Clarko coming over to you and he's rolling his sleeves up. You're like, oh, God, jeepers, get me out of here. I just want to say one quick one on like a well done. I want to say Zach Merritt. There's been a lot of
shout-outs
over his entire playing career. A lot to be said about his pressure, tackling, you know, two-way running.
Yep.
Nothing that I can judge on because I wouldn't two-way run to the fridge and back to get a beer.
Jeez.
But he had an amazing game. Although Essendon lost, he was really trying to carry them over the line on his back. Last quarter, he run down tackles, kicking goals. There was a moment where he got subbed off for a 7-minute period or whatever.
Jeez.
Sydney kicked a couple more goals. He came back out there. More tackles, more goals. He was doing everything. So it's awesome to see. He's been given the captaincy and, you know, I don't know if that's seen a change in mindset or whatever, but he's definitely leading from the front and it was crazy to watch him out there. We've got to get through this. Western Bulldogs, Gold Coast, this is one that we can get some time back on, Mace, because just a bit sad.
Country footy, baby! Ballarat!
Bit sad to see your boys go out there. Gold Coast out to Ballarat. What did you make of the game?
Packed house, 9,700 out there at Ballarat. They showed up.
That was good.
I think that's actually pretty good for a country footy game like that.
Bloody yeah.
My Gold Coast Suns, unfortunately, not the greatest night.
No. What was cool was seeing Matty Rao go head-to-head with Tom Liberatore.
Yeah.
Oh, licking your lips.
Mate, he felt real at home out there. Primo grass out there, old Matt Rao.
Yeah, well, get a lot of rain out there in Ballarat.
But no, I think Gold Coast Suns unfortunately couldn't get up on this one. Cody Waitman had 6 goals, 5.5, absolutely dominated. Was incredible on the day. Bont had 32 and 2 goals. Yeah. So the Bulldogs had a bit of a day out, especially some of their big players.
We did talk about the melee that happened in the Essendon game. There was a little fracas. There's a fracas that happened in a lot of games this weekend. But in this one in particular, there was an interesting moment. It was Latham Vandermeer came across and kind of, it was a simultaneous hit, we'll say. Yep. Alex Sexton kicking the ball, and it looked like his shoulder may have got Alex Sexton high. Just clipped him. Just a little nick. Little shave. And Sexton didn't take too kindly to it and almost did like a little palm shove off on Latham's head.
Open hand.
Open hand. He's a smart boy. But Latham, my God, it was like he was shot. He went down holding his head, a real soccer player-esque. Now, we don't like to throw the players under the bus, but jeepers. It sparked a melee. Everyone's coming in. Bont's coming in, flying the flag for his players, and they're all ragdolling each other. Surely, Lath, you got to look at the replay screen if they have one out there at Ballarat. I'm not sure if they do, but geez, you got to be going, God, oh no. I don't want to see. They got him on super slow-mo. He's caught in 4K, just playing it up. You have to come up with an excuse for that one. Oh, yeah, he got me. I had a bad ear infection. It just shook me. It's, yeah.
Well, there's one place to get away with it. It's probably Ballarat, though. They wouldn't have as many camera angles there, I think.
Oh, it was icy cold down there, and my ears were frozen.
You just warmed up.
You got to be shaping up. We move into the Richmond-Port game. Richmond, I guess, courageous in defeat. They've done that a couple of times now, and I think that'll be their year where they've just a lot of close ones, a lot of, good efforts, but just couldn't get over the line. But Port.
Big game for Port.
Yeah.
Big game.
They need to, as all interstate teams do, need to be able to come over to Melbourne, prove that they can get a win at the MCG. Good against good opposition, but Boak's 350th.
Big story.
Yeah.
To get to 350 games is not a fluke.
He's had a bit of a roller coaster in recent times, 100%. But to give up the captaincy and then be able to focus on footy, and that almost coincided. We saw a massive spike right after that happened, and I don't know if it's just him back to loving footy or whatever, but he's been playing some ripping footy over the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, it's a credit to him, man, especially at this age, still being able to perform at that high level. It's not easy. He had 15 touches over the weekend. It was just, I think for myself watching the game, it was just so nice to see them get around him.
Yeah.
Especially celebrating after the game with him and stuff like that. It's such a feel-good moment at a club whenever you have such a big milestone person and be able to win that game and have that kind of happy attitude leaving there. Like the last thing you want is to lose that game, him sit there, his whole family there, and you're trying to be happy in a shitty situation. It was good to see them win. Good to see all the boys get around him. He's meant so much to that club. He's been the face of that club for a long, long time. Him and Ken have had a nice, long relationship over there, and it's a credit to him. So shout out to old Boki.
Now, I'm going to butcher this name. Mykelti Lafau.
Yeah, we're just going to apologize before you even go into that. Yep.
But
this is one of my favorite parts, too, of the game. There's a lot of heartwarming things in this game. Very good heartwarming things.
Talk us through his family's pregame.
Yeah, so he had a bunch of family members fly over, and they did the haka for him pregame,
which is pretty cool.
So everyone knows the haka is the traditional dance over there in New Zealand that a lot of the tribes do, and he had that pregame, and they did a little thing for him out there, which was really cool, and I'm sure it would have meant a lot. I know he had that amazing kind of vision of him whenever he was picked up by Richmond, with him calling his parents and stuff, and how much it meant to him, and it was very heartwarming there. And then as a New Zealand native. I'm sure that would have meant a lot to him to have the club be able to allow his family to do that pregame for him. They're a very inclusive club over there at Richmond Football Club. They do some pretty amazing stuff in the community, and I think this is just one of those signs of what they do and looking after their players and respecting where they come from and the different cultural things they have that are involved with their families.
It was pretty cool to see. We will move into the West Coast GWS game. Sadly, because it was a bit of a massacre.
GWS got up, mate. That's your team, bros.
Yeah, I don't know.
Harley Reid watch. What do we got? How'd he go?
He actually did pretty well, and I think everyone would have seen the vision because it was a bit of a 1-2 fend off, and then he copped a massive hit at the end.
Yeah,
but set up
real Bond-esque.
Set up a mark inside 50. So it was cool. He'll start to do more and more as his career progresses. He's only a couple of games in, but. GWS got the win. First time they've ever been 3-0 to start a season, which is pretty crazy.
Yep.
I did see another one from Toby Green. He took a studs up mark that no one called him on.
Yep, sounds about right.
Which is good to see that he's getting away with it. Which is, I like the studs up mark, the karate kick.
I've got studs on my quad right now. You can see that.
Yeah, because you're normally the step ladder out there, but there was another good moment from this game where Ben Cousins was wearing the full West Coast kit. He's looking in ripping nick, running around out there, playing in the past Eagles v Sons and Daughters curtain raiser. So it's always good to see, Ben's road to recovery. He's had a lot of rough years, but good to see him bouncing back. And
doing some media recently. He's done this.
Mint. It's an instant throwback. He looks so young out there and trim.
Australians just absolutely love him. I never saw him in the flesh whenever he played, but he's one of those kind of legends as far as a football player that people really just look back on fondly.
Yeah. Oh, that midfield: Cox, Kerr, Judd, Cousins.
Sorry about some names.
All right, let's jump into the absolute.
Let's get it over with, Brayden. Come on. Come on.
The absolute car crash that was Collingwood versus St Kilda. I did say that last week wasn't great. I feel, although we had some nice words from Flyer saying that there were elements of Collingwood's game in that, this as far as a game to watch if you're a Collingwood fan, it wasn't fun because it was mixed with the element of a lot of umpire decisions, a lot of one-way umpire decisions. Not saying whether they were correct or incorrect, because I looked at the game and I just said I couldn't pick a lot of Collingwood players that played, a great game. That was the way that I called it. That was the way that I saw it. How was it out there? What are you seeing from these? Are you starting to turn it around? Do you see elements of your game coming through? How was St Kilda? Everyone you can't downplay what they've done, what they did last year. They've proved that they're a consistent, high-pressure team, and it sems like you were under pressure for a lot of the night.
Their pressure was really good on the night. I think a lot of people forget they were top 8 last year. I don't know why, but they played really well on the weekend. It was credit to them. We weren't probably as clean as we'd like to be. Some of the fundamental aspects, but I think there was signs of us being able to play well. We went on a little bit of a run for a short period there, and that was kind of, that was kind of showing signs of what we were a lot of last year. Being able to go on these runs and finish out games and stuff like that. So it wasn't the result we wanted, obviously, but I think there was aspects of the games. We'll sit there and we'll review that. We go into it and say, how were we able to execute whenever we were going well? What was going on and what had changed? And be able to try to extend that out and be a longer period throughout the game. So it's it's a tough pill to swallow, 0-3, but that's the situation we're in, and we look forward to Brisbane.
There's been some comments made by Ross Lyon talked about it, Luke Hodge talked about it, respected people in the game, that Collingwood, to a degree, when you're the premiership team, you're always the team getting chased down. Does it seem like teams have kind of figured out your game style and have figured out how to kind of try to shut it down?
I think, whenever you win a grand final, I look at kind of previous years and other teams that have won it. You definitely look at the game plan, the game style. You look back to Richmond and their dynasty, not dynasty, but the 3 premierships that they won. And dynasty, is it 3 or 4?
Maybe it's 3. But it's 3 in a row.
3 in a row, okay, yeah. Well, they're dominance. We'll say dominance. Yeah, sorry, guys. Dominance. You look at that, and then I think, the way the game was played was really changed when they're winning it. So you do look at the top kind of teams and take a few kind of, leaves out of their book and try to see if you can emulate that in your own game plan and change things up to see kind of if it will work well with what you're doing. So I'm sure that people over the offseason have looked at what we've done, looked at the way we've structured up and everything else, and, have taken a few ideas from that. That's the thing. We gotta consistently get better. Why people are always going to be chasing the people at the top, and it's just a sign that we need to keep being better at what we're doing. And you can, it's a bit of an understanding whenever you lose a few games that this is something you can't slack on. You got to try to keep getting better every single day. We keep saying that at the club, and we want to make sure that's a priority of ours, no matter what the situation is. We walk in there and. We don't ride the roller coaster of the wins and the losses every single week. We want to make sure that we go in, we have a purpose for training, a purpose of what we're doing and what we want to get better on and be able to execute it.
And when you're not winning, it's easy, especially when you're the premiers. People start trying to pick holes in it and pick holes in players' games. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the older players at the club. You're one of them, but you haven't heard a lot of Mason Cox names out there in the media, which is good. They got it out of the system in round 0. They got it out there. But Scott Pendlebury, fearless leader, Pendlebury, almost 400-game player.
Absolute legend.
Coming under fire, saying, his time might be coming to an end. But is this something that's just... the disrespect at a bloke that's pretty much done everything you can do, and he would be the last guy that I would point at to go, he had a light off season or anything to the like, because I've never met a more professional man in my entire life.
Yeah, he's the most consummate professional I've ever met in my life, and this is the thing, right? It's like if you want a headline, who do you do? You go straight to people who have a name that will create kind of clicks and create reads and all this kind of stuff. And you go, okay, these are the people we're probably going to target this week. And that's just the cycle of media, right?
Is that why you didn't get brought up?
What do you mean?
Is that why you didn't get brought up?
Not good enough. Yeah. That's probably actually it. But I think you come to realize, I'm sure Pendle's been through this before, you come to realize that there's not much you can do about that. That kind of is going to happen out on the outer, whoever it is, whether him or someone else on the team, whoever it may be. The media is going to take their shots at people. And at the end of the day, we just can control what we can control. And I think the biggest thing is whenever those things happen, it kind of almost makes us come back together even more to say, look, we're going to support this person, whatever's happening. And I think that's just one of those things, the older you get, the more you realize and the probably less it affects you sometimes. where you just say, look, well, I've been through this before. I know how it works. They can hate you one week and love you the next week, and that's just how it is. And it almost kind of is easier, I guess, the older and the more experience you have with it, to understand exactly how, the environment of media works in Australia.
Now, where were you when Jack Higgins kicked his goal?
I was cooked. I think I was in the forward line rolling back, and I saw him out in the car park, and I thought maybe he had left his keys or something. He went back to the car to make sure they were there. And then he came back in, and somehow the umpire put 2 pistols out, and I was kind of confused what happened. But yes, and then of course it gets goal of the year, which is the second time Jack Higgins has gotten a goal of the year nomination for something that shouldn't have been a goal of the year. So, I mean, I love Jack. I'm a big fan of Jack Higgins. He's an absolute legend. But it is kind of funny and ironic that I feel like every single time he's getting the goal of the year, for some reason it's against us.
Yeah. The celebration was a cracker. Yeah. And the little chirp afterwards.
I think he was in just as much of disbelief as everyone else that it went through.
The chirp afterwards, it almost makes it better when it's like he was joking about being in the Caulfield car park and stuff like that. Which is, it's good to have a laugh. Like, the result is what it is. Obviously, we'll never know. We'll never know if it was in or out. Umpires are going to make their decisions. But, yeah, the throw one was a throw.
Yeah, I think we obviously know that was a throw. But
it was just so crazy that you don't, as you're trying to compute it, you're like, can you do that?
Can you
throw it around the goalpost and hit it with the bicycle?
Is it allowed? I think so. No, maybe not.
Yeah, so that was the third out of bounds line ball call, which was called stay in. But we can't review it, even though it is a pretty pivotal moment in the game, mate. Yeah. The game was still on the line at that stage, and that was pretty much the final nail in the coffin. But a line ball out of bounds call that we can't even look at. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
We've had plenty of chatter around umpiring decisions in this podcast, Brayden, but we'll move on. There's plenty of other things that happened in this game. It was Spud's game. Got to give credit to this. The people that put it together. Incredible experience to have representatives from every single club there in the circle, have the lights go off, have both teams there with the umpires, and have those words be said in the middle and the song that was kind of sung. It was a cool experience to be out there. Very humbling, made you really think of the actual day and what it was about, especially with everyone around you, and just that time to really take a breath and, really kind of, I guess, acknowledge, how important it is, mental health. And it was a cool experience. It was something like, I look at the different experiences I've had in AFL, your Anzac days and your Freeze and D days and all that kind of stuff. And it was awesome to be part of that. A very unique situation. It was with the whole kind of event of the AFL game, but it really kind of made you think about it on the day. I don't know why, but it kind of like hit me while I was out there in the middle of, just people, that have had mental health issues and stuff like that. And just kind of makes you, I guess, come back to the forefront of how important it is to make sure you check in on your mates. We've said it on this podcast before. If you have anyone you think's going through a tough time or something like that, just shooting a text to them and checking in on them really does mean a lot. So if you do have that person that instantly comes to mind, my advice is to send them a message. But yeah, I think being out there in the center of it just kind of it's awesome to have that on a public stance and such a big occasion to give credit to it.
There's something cool and special about silence in a stadium.
Yeah.
Like it's just the juxtaposition of like it at its actual peak of like people screaming and you've just kicked the goal, you've just won a game. And then just compare that to the absolute, you can hear a pin drop. And we'll see it at Anzac Day, for example. It's just
the respect that comes with it. Yeah.
Oh, it's just amazing. It gives you shivers. I reckon that's where we wrap it up. I reckon it was pretty good. There was a couple of injuries that came out of it. Liam Henry, high-grade hammy.
Yeah, wild.
He
was killing it too.
No one, it kind of looked like a bit of a tweak. They thought it was a tweak on the night, and then it looks like he's going to be out 6 to 8. Oof. We will talk about Mason Wood because it was such a tragic incident.
No, it was
courageous. Another one of those courageous acts that we see out there on the footy field. Unfortunately, flipped upside down, broke his collarbone and knocked himself out, which was, it was crazy to see. But all the professionals out there did a really good job. Yeah, they don't rush these things. Yeah. Make sure he's safe and get him off the field. Where were you when that all went down?
I was next to Ryan Marshall. We're just sitting there, and it's one of those things like you want to. I think your instant thing is I want to help somehow, but going in there is not the right decision because you have so many doctors and people that are actually qualified to do it. But it's never a good thing to see, man. It's it's part of this game. I understand these things do happen, but seeing that to an opposition or a teammate of your own, is never easy. Like it's always one of those things. It's this harsh, stark reminder of how much we put our bodies on the line. And unfortunately for him, he kind of came out the bad end of it. But hopefully he's all right. Hopefully he's recovering okay and everything else. But yeah, it was one of those moments, especially whenever the game stops. Everyone's kind of obviously all attention's on what happened. The replay happens again, whatever it is, on television. It is a stark reminder of just how much we put ourselves through to be able to entertain the fans and everything else. It's not an easy job as much as people think it is, and there's a lot of things that you go in with all the best intentions and try your heart out, but sometimes unfortunately it's you come off second best.
Prayers up to him.
Yeah,
he's actually we've had him in on a podcast in this studio before, ripping bloke, and he told us that at one point he'd had more scans than games played.
Wow!
So he had over 100 scans.
Throughout his, I'd have quite a few. I'd have over 50, I reckon.
Yeah. It's just it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of injuries.
There's a lot of stuff that goes in behind the scenes that a lot of people don't see, and it's not made public for reasons. Obvious reasons.
Yeah, well, I mentioned that I did my rib playing indoor soccer at that time. So.
Did you mention you rushed your testicle also?
We got to finish on a positive because we just went injury. So let's finish on a positive, and we'll finish on what are you looking forward to? What's this? You'd like to drive this one. What's your? I've got one this week because normally you go first every week.
Yeah.
And this was a funny one where it was like, I did full circle and ended up in a pretty positive spot. But I went to get ice cream.
Ooh,
so I went to
Ben & Jerry's, or are we talking connoisseur?
No, Messina. We went to
fancy.
We did teppanyaki for my birthday, which was like a month ago. We finally got around to doing
Did you get
something.
The shrimp in the pocket?
I caught 8 bits of egg back to back.
Wow.
Bloke stopped throwing me egg because he's like,
we're running out.
We're gonna run out of egg.
Well, I got a dozen in here.
So at least I got one talent. I caught all the bowls one-handed.
He's caught about
10 bowls while eating all these eggs. But then I wasn't done. I wanted ice cream. So I went and got myself a nice big thing of Messina. And as I was walking home, I saw this girl. She was giving me the eyes.
Oy.
I was trying to give her the eyes back, but she was on the other side of this pole. So I'm holding my ice cream and I'm like trying to get around this pole. Anyway, she's looking at me and I'm trying to look around this pole. That probably makes it creepy. Anyway, I've got my ice cream and I feel something hit. A bird shits on my head.
No.
As I'm trying to look at this girl that's looking at me. Anyway, she sees the bird shit on me while I'm holding the ice cream. But then for the life of me, it was so hard to be upset because I had an ice cream. So I was like, oh, well. I just rubbed it into the back of my head.
Oh, no.
And then just kept going.
You used it as gel.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Whoa, what?
Yeah, so then...
They say whenever a bird shits on you, it's good luck. Yeah, but did she give you her number or what?
No. Why would you give a guy your number that you just saw got shit on by a bird? Unless you wanted half my ice cream.
Yeah, but half a liter tub. Maybe.
It was so hard to be disappointing because I still had the ice cream.
What's your flavor?
Salted caramel white chocolate.
Yeah, okay.
They know me when I walk in there. And they say, do you want the regular? And I'm like, can we just pretend like I'm not always in here?
I've never been here before,
Can we just do that for me?
Can I just do a few tasters just to make me feel at home?
Hello, sir. What are you after? That's all I want, not the regular. Anyway, I'm sure you did something similar.
Yeah, I went to the F1 over the weekend. I was very fortunate in that.
I didn't get the call up this year.
Didn't get the call up this year. No, unfortunately, sorry, mate. You can't get the call up every single year. But no, I went to the F1. Epic. The race was amazing.
Did you see any of it this year?
I did. Yeah, I saw some cars go by for sure. No, it was awesome. Max, unfortunately, went out in the very beginning of it.
That was good, right?
Which was great because he was kind of picked to automatically win. So it became a bit of a competition between everyone else. Piastri was third, and then Norris. They just made a decision to say, Oscar, drop back one to fall out of the podium, and Norris is going to go ahead of you. So that was kind of deflating, obviously. You know, you want the Australian to get his podium in his home country.
Yeah.
But I understand you got to do the team thing whenever it comes to that stuff. But
that's bullshit.
It is bullshit.
We're not an F1 podcast.
Yeah.
We can say whatever we like
Zach
about the F1s.
Give Zach some fucking feedback.
Stick it up, you F1s.
Oh, man. No, but it was an absolute epic weekend. It was one of the best weekends in Melbourne. International people come from all over the world. And it's just such a vibrant spot. There was 450 or 60,000 people over 3 days. It is an absolute festival, and it's a credit to the people that put it together. Pretty insane how much goes into it behind the scenes that people don't realize. So I will say that, but I do ride my bike around there every Saturday, so I'm excited to get my bike route back over there at Albert Park.
I'm surprised you didn't decide to go to the Gold Coast Western Bulldogs game out in Ballarat that ran at the same time.
Decided not to. Just missed it, Brayden. Wouldn't believe it.
If they had given you free tickets, maybe. But
like I said, I'm glad to get the bike route back, and I'm going to have to get back into the Lycra.
Oh, let's not. That's not good for anyone. That's not good for anyone. Let's wrap this up. We're going an hour 15 or so.
Geez. All right. Now, everyone, thank you so much. I know you usually hear the preview, but the preview is going to go out later this week for the round that's coming up. So make sure you listen out for that. One of the biggest things you can do to support this podcast, though, is one, tell your friends, but two, hit the download link that automatically reminds you whenever we come out with a new podcast. So do that now whenever you get a chance. And just want to say a massive, massive thank you for being a fan of the podcast and listening in. But that is it from us of the review of round 3. You can
slide into the DMs if you're that girl that saw me get shit on.
Hey! We're going to end it on that. Shithead over here wants to get it slide in from the DM. But thanks everyone for listening. We'll speak to you soon.
Peace.